Hey guys, this is 4.1 slope of a line. So we're going to be talking about slopes for these linear equations that we're going to be getting into. Okay, so the slope is just a ratio of rise over run. Okay, so you might have seen it like that, rise over run. We use that a lot when we're given a graph and we're trying to find the slope. If we're given 2 points, we'll oftentimes use this, the slope formula. It's just the difference of the y's is your rise, and the difference of your x's is your run. Okay, so we'll be looking at those. Another way to kind of think of it is the change in y and the change in x, but it's all the same. It's all the same sort of thing. Okay, there's basically 4 different types of slopes. You could have positive, negative, zero slope, or undefined slope. Okay, so let's look at these two. It says describe the slope and then calculate its slope. Really, I'm just going to ask you to find the slope. I think we're okay with, I think describing the slope is basically the same thing as when we find the slope. So basically we want to find the rise between these 2 points. So the rise here is 4 and the run is 1. So the slope would be rise over run, which is 4 over 1, and we'd simplify that fraction. So always simplify the fraction. The only thing I do not want is decimals. So if you have a fraction, I don't want you to write it as a decimal. I always want it as either a whole number like 4 or a fraction like 1/2. Okay? Alright, so pause and give this one a try if you would. Okay, so the rise is negative. It's going down. So we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would be negative 6 in the y direction. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in the x direction. So again, we want rise over the run. And then we'd simplify the fraction. So we can divide top and bottom by 2, and we get negative 3/4. Okay. Somebody asked, like, is that the same as, like, if you have the negative in the front like that, or if you had it as 3 over negative 4? Like, those are all the same. Typically, if you find your answer, usually it will look something like this. Okay, but they're all the same. All right, let's talk about rise and run here. So rise, so looking at these 2 points, what's the rise? Well, it doesn't go up at all. It stays the same, so the rise would be 0. And then the run here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5. Okay, we simplify that. That's the same as just 0. So the slope here is 0. If you have a horizontal line, then it has a slope of 0. Okay, let's look at D. So M is our slope. Oops, that's one too many. Okay, so M is rise. So the rise here is 1, 2, 3. So it has a rise of 3. But then the run here, it doesn't go left or right at all. It stays the same. So the run is 0. So what I'd like you to do here is to use your calculator to simplify 3 over 0. And it should tell you that it's an error. Okay? The reason why is you can't, 3 divided by 0, you can't divide something by 0. Okay? And the word we use for that is undefined. So that would be, it's an undefined slope. Okay? And I think that's written up here too. So undefined slope. Alright, so that's it. On your homework, you might also see problems that look like this. Why don't we do it like this? That's not a very good straight line, okay? And then I've had lots of students say, but Mr. Warner, you didn't give me any points this time, okay? So if that's the case, let me actually do a different line. So it's actually straight. Okay, we want something like that. Okay, so if you have a line like that and it doesn't show like points like the other ones we've done, you're always going to want to look for good points, not any decimals. It needs to be right on like these x values, or not x values, but like where the graphs are shown. Okay, so like that would be a good point, that would be a good point. So we could do 3 over 6, 3 over 6, which would be the same as 1/2. Or we could have used like this point and this point. We can go up 1 over 2, and that's also 1/2. So it doesn't really matter what points you choose. Just make sure that you're picking points that are nice points. Okay, so like when I'm saying, you wouldn't want to choose like this, because then you'd have to go. I mean, not that you couldn't do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just makes it more difficult. So I would always choose spots that are nice points like that, or that, or that, or that, okay, to do those. Okay, all right, next thing up is finding the slope from 2 points. So this is the slope formula. M is the slope, and then we have y2 minus y1, so that's the difference of the y's, which is the rise, and the denominator is the difference of the x's, and that's the run. Okay, so if you're given 2 points, so this is like 1 point, that's x1 and y1, and this would be like a second point, x2, y2. Okay, so I'm just going to write those over here. So this could be like x1 and y1, that's our first point, meaning the 1 there, and then we'd have x2, y2, that's like our second point. So then we just substitute it into the formula and we'll simplify. So the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We'll simplify the numerator, so that gives us 2. Simplify the denominator, and that gives you 9. And then we'll simplify the fraction if possible. And here we can't. Okay, we can't simplify that, so we just have our answer. Okay, so here's another example. You could pause and give this a try if you'd like. I think that would be a good idea. So we have, again, you could label these again if you wanted to. I think by the time you get these good, you probably maybe not need to write these, but it's always helpful. So we've got 4 minus 14, so that's the difference of the y's, so y2 minus y1, over x2, which is 16, minus x1, which is 13. Okay, so we simplify, that would give us negative 10 over 3. And again, that can't be simplified, so we're done. Okay. It's important that we talk about like negatives. When we talk about all these we've had so far, our points are positive numbers. So let's make sure we're good with what happens if we have negative values. So we still set up the same points, so first and second points. We'll use that formula, which is y2 minus y1. Okay, so we're subtracting a negative 13. So this is very important, that we're always subtracting. That's what that is. But if we're subtracting a negative, it will always give us a positive. So I always write it like that, and then I will cover them with my pen or pencil, and I'll make it be a positive. Okay. And then for the denominator, we have negative 17 minus x1, which is 1. So here it stays, we don't make it be positive. We only get a positive if it's a double negative, so minus a negative. Okay, and then we could use our calculators if we wanted to for the numerator. Negative 7 plus 13 should give you 6. And then the denominator should give us negative 18. And then we would simplify. You can use your calculator to do that. We should get negative 1/3. Okay, so just watch for those double negatives. All right. And the last thing we need to talk about is these are like the same types of problems. It's just you're solving for something different. For these problems, we're solving for m. Here we're solving for one of the values of the points. You set it up the exact same way. So we have m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, I should mention this, it doesn't matter which point you choose to be your 1 or your 2. What's important is that you are consistent, okay? So you can't do y2 minus y1 and then change that and be x1 minus x2, okay? So you got to do it the same. You just got to be consistent, okay? All right, so let's set this up. So m, which is 2/3, is equal to, again, we could write these here if you wanted to, but we'll do y2 minus y1, so that's y minus 1 over x2 minus x1, which will be 4 minus a negative 2. So that will end up giving us a positive. Okay, and 4 plus 2 would give us 6. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite that again just so that it's a little more clear. Okay, and now you have done these types of problems before. We did this in our last unit when we did proportions. These are basically two ratios that are set equal to each other, and we can solve. So cross multiply, 2 times 6 is 12, and then we'll multiply 3 times y minus 1. And we'll need to use the distributor property. I know some of you are just doing it as you go, and that's fine, but I'm just writing it here just to make it more clear. Okay, so we'd distribute, we'd get 3y minus 3, and then we will solve. So again, we always add or subtract. So we get 15 is equal to 3y, and then we'll divide both sides by 3. So we get y is equal to 5. Okay, so I know it takes a little more steps because you have to like what you're solving for isn't all by itself. So when we do these problems, m is already by itself, so it makes it really nice. You could simplify it and you don't have to try and move things to the other side. Where these problems, you need to get the variable by itself. So let's do one more, make sure that we're really good. I would love it if you would pause and give it a try. Since we're going to be trying to cross multiply, it would probably be good to make this be a fraction. So we'll do negative 2 over 1, that's our slope, is equal to, I'm going to write these here again. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We'll simplify that numerator here, so that would give us negative 8. And I know sometimes people just go like this and change that to be negative 8, and I'm okay if you do that. It'll save you some time. Just make sure you know what you're doing. Okay, and then we'll just cross multiply and solve. So we got 1 times negative 8 is equal to negative 2 times x minus 5. So remember that negative 2 needs to be multiplied by the x, and it needs to be multiplied by the negative 5. So that would give us a positive 10. Okay, and then we'll just get x by itself, so subtract 10. And then divide by negative 2. So x equals 9. Okay, well, if you have any questions on that, let me know. All right, last thing, number 4, you do not have this on your notes. So I would maybe pause and write these down. I think that would be a good idea. Either that or you have it on your homework. They're different problems, but you could write notes on that if you needed to, okay? So we're trying to find the slope from an equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. It's probably the most common linear equation. Okay, where m is your slope. B is your y-intercept. We'll talk about that in the next lesson. Okay, so slope is just what's in front of your x. So m here, slope is 2. Slope is 1/2. Slope here is a -1. You don't see the 1, but we always have a number in front of variables. And then here, this one's kind of tricky. This is the same as y equals 0x plus 3. So this is your y-intercept, and your slope is 0. Okay? Alright, so that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll see you later.